Okay, it's gone.
All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA DFS video. Going to be touching on both the FanDuel and DraftKings slate. The FanDuel slate does start a little bit sooner, so we'll touch on that, and then we'll be getting more into the DraftKings side of it. So, kind of what are your initial thoughts for today?
Well, we have no value. Nikola Jokic is very expensive, pretty low owned though. Cleveland, Caris LeVert's going to be out, so I think it's a boost for Max Strus, right? And Darius Garland was pretty disappointing in the last game, but I'm going to go right back to him, especially if his ownership is going to come in low. I guess that's only a FanDuel play. So DraftKings locks in an hour and a half, and FanDuel locks in 10 minutes. So I guess Cleveland and Denver are only FanDuel plays. But just to get into FanDuel real quick for guys building right now, Jordan Clarkson, Santi Aldama, Max Strus, looks like Evan Mobley, and then Luka came up as questionable on the injury report. So I love Kyrie Irving today on both sides. Sengun against the Lakers seems great. And then De'Aaron Fox, he's a little bit more expensive on FanDuel, but I think he's a great spot. And then was SGA questionable? Was I reading? Did I miss that?
I did not see that earlier today. That could have changed. I haven't looked in the past hour or so. So let me just pull that up real quick. No, he looks good to go. SGA looks good to go.
Oh, okay. Okay, that might have just been me like assuming they were going to sit him since they're playing Portland and they like sit him on back-to-backs.
Jalen Williams is out though.
So. Okay. So that's why I have Josh Giddey a little bit higher in my rankings as well. And so that's a pretty good rundown of my core for FanDuel.
Yeah. And so just real quickly, do you want to mention like Cleveland, we're probably looking at a lower owned Garland. I mean, he's not pulling in too much ownership, 34% there. And then you got Aaron Gordon, 12% there. Michael Porter Jr., 2%. Kind of where you're looking at there.
Well, excuse me. Max Strus is my favorite spot from that game, getting to a lot of Evan Mobley as well. I mentioned I like Darius Garland. I'm not jamming him in or anything, but projected for 14% ownership on FanDuel, I'm over the field on that 14%. But yeah, Max Strus, I think, is the spot. Just he's going to play heavy minutes. I don't see any reason he wouldn't play less than the minutes he's been playing lately. I think he played 38 in the last game. So 38 minutes of Max Strus. He's been great. I'm going to go right back to him.
What about Dean Wade? He was something that was popping up, I think, on the OF Index as a good value the last slate, or are we just kind of staying away from that?
So it's so funny when that guy pops up at the top of value. Like he's expected for big minutes, but he really does nothing on the court when he's out there, right?
Yep.
And he's not showing up nearly at the top of value today, thank goodness. So we don't have to go there. But he is some kind of salary relief, I guess, if you're playing on FanDuel trying to get up to Jokic. It's really hard. He's 13K over there. Yeah. I mean, but he's been crushing, and you could say like, sure, it's a tougher matchup than he's used to. But it's Nikola Jokic. It doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not too worried about that. And he's just been crushing. I mean, if you're not playing him, like you're probably smashing in Gordon and MPJ, who are both pretty low owned. So,
yeah, I think those guys are both good too as a GPP place. And then, I wanted to mention Grant Williams on both sites. Like he's had 2 good games in a row, but that's not being like the field isn't chasing that. I think he was the he's third on FanDuel value, coming in at 2 and 3% on both sites. And his DraftKings value isn't as high, but he's still number 7 on the list. And so I think that's something that, we're star for value on the slate. And so I like Grant Williams.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much good for the FanDuel slate. Not seeing any real questions pertaining to FanDuel too much. So it was Jokic or SGA for FanDuel. Can you play both, or kind of which one would you roll with? That's the biggest question we have for FanDuel right now.
It doesn't look like I got to any SGA on FanDuel, and I actually didn't really get to very much Jokic either, just a couple of lineups. So it looks like I said, like we're star for value. Maybe value opens up later. Jokic plays in the first game, so if you lock him in, and I don't know, you just kind of have to hope something opens up later, I think, if you're doing that, where SGA plays second to last game of the night. So we'll have more news by then. But I mean, if Jokic is going to come in this low owned and we're just hoping for value, right? I think Memphis is pretty shorthanded, so there's going to be some spots over there. Santi Aldama, my favorite play from there. John Conchar was showing up, but it's like I don't love John Conchar, but he is pretty cheap on both sides. So,
yeah, that'll be something we'll get into a little bit more here because we probably will get some Memphis value. But yeah, I think that's good for FanDuel specific. We'll get this kind of the main slate for DraftKings going. We just want to start with that just to give you guys that little quick input. So I'll pivot on into the DraftKings main slate here.
Yep, lost you.
Did you? Okay, we'll switch. All right, here we go. And so
lost you on the slide. Sorry.
No, you're good. So looking at the ownership that we have right now for the main slate for DraftKings, Aiden's pulling in as chalk, Contra's pulling in as chalk, Jeremy Grant's pulling in as chalk, Kenrick Williams with the Jalen Williams news. That's a little bit fascinating to me. Should we start out with OKC with Jalen Williams out?
Yeah, and so here's the thing about OKC. I find it so weird that Josh Giddey is not getting minutes. They played an overtime game last night, and I don't think he played more than 22 minutes. Might be mistaken on that, but he keeps getting benched. And initially, he was getting benched for Casey Wallace at the end of games for the defensive side. And does Jalen Williams being out give Josh Giddey more room to run? I'm not sure.
You would think, though.
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, I have Josh Giddey a bunch in my lineups right now, and so I'm kind of banking on that. But they're comfortable running Kenrich Williams out. He's been getting just as many minutes as Josh Giddey has, and then. So Kenrich Williams, he's probably a little bit too cheap on both sides. So he's showing up as a chalkier value. So I would expect his ownership to go up slightly. I'm not sure what other sites have him projected at. Like, we don't have him great in value. We don't have him great on OF index, but he is a cheap piece that allows us to fit some pricier guys in our lineups, I guess.
And that might just be one of those situations where that's just the first pivot that people made because it was kind of a lazy pivot on a lot of people's parts. Because like Isaiah Joe could logically be the play as well, and he's only 4.4, projected to get 25 minutes, and so like I don't know, I think I like that play a little bit better. I have the per 36 production pulled up with Jalen Williams off the court. It goes SGA minutes wise, then Isaiah Joe, then Carson Wallace, then Dort, then Usman. Dieng, and then Holmgren. And so, yeah, we got to go down a ways to get to some of those other guys. So, to me, I'm probably starting out with Joe and then maybe even Dort as like a more of a GPP play, I would say, for Dort. And then maybe some Carson Wallace, but he's probably a little bit too thin at that price tag.
Yeah, so I don't mind Isaiah Joe. He's cheap. He's easy to fit in. And the other night he was a little chalkier, and I said I didn't like it on the short slate, and then he went out and shot 7 for 7 from 3. I mean, he's getting playing time. He's getting the opportunity. He's playing very well. And so as long as the field doesn't come up on his ownership right now, we're showing, I think it was 10% when I saw it a minute ago.
Yeah,
I think that's fine.
I got it at 18%. I'll just refresh this though.
Okay. Maybe that came up after the Jalen Williams news.
Could be. Let me just refresh this on my end though and just see. Fair warning though, Isaiah Joe, we won a GPP that day. A little small one. It was actually tilting because it was the lowest dollar amount that I had entered for the day, and that's what always happens with me. It's super tilting. So maybe I'm a little biased there with Isaiah Joe. Is kind of what I'm trying to get at.
No, I mean, either way, he's getting hot from 3. He can do it again, and if there is a blowout, which is a possibility. I know we don't like to preach for that on the show, but I mean, I don't know if he gets like the super blowout run, but he should be in line for a few more minutes.
Yeah, I mean, who would it probably be? Aaron Wiggins, who we have projected to get 16 minutes if there's a super blowout. But I don't think we're too worried about that. Like SGA is going to be fine. Chet Holmgren might actually get locked into a few more minutes here. So, all in all, I don't know. It doesn't really change much. Like the production for the most part had kind of been spread out. It's been SGA predominantly. We haven't seen Jalen Williams be super consistent. So I don't know. I probably do like Joe, and then probably just going with the norm, like SGA, Chet. Like if you're typically on them, be on them. That's kind of my approach, I think.
I mean, SGA at just so Luka's the top of the model, right? But SGA is not that far behind, and he's $1,600 cheaper on DraftKings, and then below him, DeMantis, AD, I think are both great plays. Jason Tatum is kind of surprising me that he's showing up this high in the model. Something to pay attention to.
Yeah.
But SGA's ownership, I mean, it seems fine. His price is great. It's only a 6-point spread, so there's not that much risk of a blowout. But when considering these teams, I think there is a little bit more than Vegas implies. But Vegas is good. Vegas knows more than I do. So,
yeah. And then just kind of real quickly touching on some other news that we have. Someone said that Luka was in, I believe. We got to make sure that is confirmed. We'll see. And then we got some other questions that we'll get into. Jose's always in here. Thanks for being here, buddy. Who are the core plays tonight? We'll get into that as it progresses. It is kind of a unique slate. Is Sabonis KD pairing okay. We'll touch on that as well. I would say just right off the bat, I'm kind of fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jose saying great analysis. Thank you again. All right. So we're kind of caught up with some of the comments. So let's go ahead and move on into kind of some of the other slate impacting news that we have. I'll just mention real quick, the Kings projected to be without Kevin Huerter. Keanu Ellis is currently projected to start from where I'm looking. Luka, game time decision expected to play now. Beal is going to be out for Phoenix. Looking at Boston, Jaylen Brown's expected to play. Memphis, we'll get into right after this segment. Portland, they're looking like they're going to be without Brogdon, Scoot, Simon. So, nothing new there. And then, Jalen Williams, we just mentioned for OKC. So let's go on and get into Memphis because that is probably going to be where we get into our source of value. We saw Bane and Jaren Jackson both had pretty good games the last game. And then it was kind of spread out, like Jacob Gilyard was someone that was pulling in some chalk ownership. I guess, what are your initial thoughts here for Memphis?
Well, I watched the Memphis game last night, and I kind of expected Bane to do everything like he has been, but he couldn't. Jaren Jackson tried so hard in the second half, and he just couldn't. But Santi Aldama looked awesome. He's getting bigger minutes. We haven't projected for 26. I could see him getting even more than that. I believe he's been playing more than that the past couple of games. I think Bismack might have gotten into early foul trouble, maybe cost him a few minutes. But Zaire Williams was the other big piece that showed up for Memphis last night. Jacob Gilyard got benched after he fouled out after 3 fouls. I thought that was so funny. Like he checked out in the first half and then he just didn't start the second half, never came in again. So they were running some combination of Zaire, Desmond Bane, Santi Aldama handling the basketball. And so Jacob Gilyard, I don't think he's a play today. Just he got benched yesterday. Maybe if he's in the starting lineup today, we can go there at very low ownership. But I think everyone is basically in play here, other than Gilyard, Roddy, and Lofton. I'm getting to a lot of the rest of the guys, and I'm kind of surprised they're coming in so low. Like Jaren Jackson, 8,100. I know he's a similar price to Evan Mobley, who is the preferred play, but he is such a good pivot at 2% ownership.
No, I like that. And I just want to echo your point there. Like everyone is probably maybe correctly priced, but on the slate where it does feel like the pricing is a little bit higher than normal slates, I'm kind of fine getting to all of them. And Jaren Jackson, he is a GPP play. What are you thinking, like ownership wise? What, like 8%? Like how overweight, I guess, would you go there?
Let me pull up my build real quick.
And then while you're doing that, I do want to mention Kenneth Lofton. You said probably not in play. He is the minimum price. And I will say, like, if we knew for sure that he was going to get 12 minutes, like, obviously we're not going out of our way to play him. But like me, that's someone that does hand builds. If he gets 12 minutes, let's say, like he could easily get 17 in 12 minutes. He has shown that. I don't think we're banking on that. Not a play that I would say you're going out of your way to play, but I could see him as like the last player into a build if like you love the rest of your build.
The thing I will say for Kenny Lofton is when this dude comes in the game, he loves to shoot the basketball. He has never found a shot he doesn't like.
Exactly.
And so I don't mind that on DraftKings at the flat min.
Yeah.
And then for Jaren Jackson, it looks like I got 20% in my pre-stream build. So
vastly overweight.
Yeah, I'm going to take the leverage if everyone's going, or I'm sorry, Mobley's not on DraftKings. But yeah, I'm getting Jaren Jackson 20% in my DraftKings build. So.
Okay. I gotcha. Yeah, it's the whole FanDuel thing starting earlier does make it more difficult today. So we know that Tillman's going to be out. So any Bismack, how much Bismack? And that's kind of my point as well. Like maybe, like we're not banking on, but maybe he gets into foul trouble, and that's where Lofton maybe he gets more than 12 minutes, and we're looking at 20, and then we have a potential GPP winner at no ownership. And again, I hate that call, but it's something I could see myself personally ending up on to close out a build. So I thought I'd mention it.
I think that's part of what got me onto a little bit more JJJ earlier is that if Bismack gets into foul trouble, they could slide him down to center. They're comfortable with Santi at the power forward. It's his natural position. And then Zaire Williams, Desmond Bane, and one of David Roddy or John Contra is probably the lineup that they like the most right now.
Yeah.
If Bismack's in foul trouble, but I'm with the field on Bismack. So DraftKings, we can't play two centers. Jaren Jackson has center eligibility. I do prefer getting him into power forward today because there are a lot of centers that I like. Like John Collins at 6.3 is still fine, also power forward eligibility. But Ayton Sabonis still going to be way over the field on Anthony Davis at this under 10K price now. And Chet Holmgren's center only. I think that's pretty much the centers I'm interested in, though. And I don't know if I just said Sengun, but I kind of really like Sengun against the Lakers today.
No, you hadn't yet, but yeah, we'll get into that. I did want to real quickly get your thoughts on John Concher. Pulling in 30%, 3.8 to me, right as the slate started, I thought he was the starting point for me, just value wise. Then we'll kind of, as the slate progresses, as the day progresses, make some pivots where needed. And that was more just minutes wise. He's pretty much locked into his role. Maybe he makes a couple more shots, 26 minutes. I'm kind of okay with that in a slate where we're starved for value. Kind of just where I ended up. What are your kind of initial thoughts on that?
I do like John Conchar today, but if I was making a decision between him and Zaire Williams, I do prefer Zaire Williams.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I just noticed John Conchar's ownership is 30%
Mm-hmm.
versus Zaire Williams 4. I'm
Yeah.
just going to take the leverage and play him more Zaire Williams. John
Okay.
Conchar is still in my builds. He's a big part of what I'm doing,
Yeah.
but I think I prefer Zaire Williams, but they're both
Okay.
fine.
And honestly, how the slate comes about, we could end up on both of them. But let's go ahead and pivot into the guard plays here. I'm going to sort by DraftKings, and so there we go. Let's see if we have any more questions as well. First, we already answered some of those. Let's see. Which loan players do you like tonight? We're starting that off. We'll go position by position and kind of break that down as the video progresses here. Quick refresh for FanDuel. Sorry, we're probably late on that. We'll answer our FanDuel plays as this progresses, but which games are going to be higher owned? Let's just take a peek at that in general, or higher scoring. So Dallas is the highest scoring game. That's probably the one you want to prioritize, Dallas versus Sacramento. Other than that, pretty much all just even keel, right? There's no other game that you would want to be targeting. Is there, Chuck?
I want to say Phoenix, Utah.
Okay.
The total in the Sacramento Dallas games 243. Phoenix Utah is 240. And Jordan Clarkson, he's a different player with Keontae George starting, and so I think that's a solid play. And then KD and Devin Booker on the Phoenix side, and I believe the cheap Eric Gordon, and I guess not great. Grayson Allen's still kind of near the top of the model, but Eric Gordon is the top of DraftKings value today.
That's fascinating. So let's start there with the guards. So Eric Gordon, top of DraftKings value. Is that just something that he's projected to get 32 minutes? Very much shot dependent. If he has a cold night, so he's not going to get there. But if he's on, he's going to crush. And it's probably a game thing as well, where it's an appealing game. Is that kind of why we're looking at Eric Gordon as a play, or is it just the cheap price tag?
I think a combination of the two, right? The cheaper price tag, and then projected for a lot of minutes, and it's a high scoring game, which means more possessions, more shots, more opportunities to score fantasy points. And so I don't know that I'm going to get there that much, but like John Conchar is right below him. I'd probably still rather play John Conchar at even at double the ownership.
Yeah, no, I think I would honestly as well. Then we have Garland, but let me get to DK main slate. There we go. Desmond Bain then popping up as the next value. I don't know. I don't see him as like a starting point, and I know the ownership doesn't as well. Do you see him as a starting point?
No, he's just a GPP play now.
Yeah, I agree. Then you got Monk pulling in a lot of ownership. To me, that's probably a little bit too high, but Grayson Allen also pulling in a little bit too high of ownership for what I'm comfortable, or sorry, not ownership. Well, Monk is pulling in high ownership. Grayson Allen's kind of a GPP play. Do you think Monk should be chalk at 5.7 and 5.8 on FanDuel and DraftKings?
So if Kevin Huerter is confirmed out, it looks like he is. Then I don't know. Like the logical pivot is just okay. Malik Monk's going to get more minutes, but I don't know if that's actually been the case when Kevin Huerter's missed time. Like Malik Monk's going to get his minutes off the bench. He's going to have the same usage, and I think his ownership, like he should be chalk, but it's a spot that I'm trying to get below this 50%.
Yeah. I mean, he had a good game last game, but he just shot the basketball well. 7 for 11, 6 for 9, and to me, that to me is what people are chasing. They're not chasing the spot; they're chasing the recency bias, and so that's where I'm like, man, maybe a little bit too chalky. Like, would you rather get to, I don't know, let's see here for the Kings in general. Keon Ellis, Durante, probably not him. Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray, bounce back game, hopefully. Like, is there anyone else you would rather get to for the Kings?
So we've mentioned this on past streams where if a guy's out and the field is flocking to the backup, a lot of times the usage is just kind of spread out between the rest of the starters. And not that Kevin Huerter is a high usage guy. He has been the last few games, but I really like De'Aaron Fox today. 9,300 on DraftKings. Ownership is under 20%. And then you mentioned Keegan Murray. That would be the guy I would expect to soak up more of the usage. He's had a few bad games in a row, but we know that he's going to play heavy minutes and he's capable of putting up that score, especially with this total. De'Aaron Fox and Keegan Murray are the two spots I'm most interested in. I'm still playing a bunch of Monk. I don't want to be at this 50%.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. Yeah, Keegan Murray just been so frustrating because like, I think Monk and Keegan Murray is like a perfect example. Like Monk had a great night shooting, Keegan Murray did not. So Monk was the one that went off. Keegan Murray could even easily do that, gain more minutes and other stats as well, rebounds, assists. Like I don't know, I like that play a little bit more. I think that's a good call. But let's go ahead and get back into the guards unless you have something to touch on there.
Nope. Just I noticed Harrison Barnes is kind of cheap, but his
Yeah.
usage is so low, even with Werder out, that I'm only going to get there a little bit.
FanDuel wise, they're kind of popping up as the same values. So kind of interesting, him and Monk. But continuing on here, Drew Holiday popping up. I don't know if we necessarily need to get there. It does feel like Jordan Clarkson would be the natural play that we want to get to. We'll touch on that in a second here. Sharp getting heavy minutes on FanDuel. I feel like he's an intriguing play at 6.7. Derek White to me is tough to get to now with Brown confirmed in. And then Booker kind of probably a little bit too high priced, and then D'Lo kind of cheap. Keontae George kind of cheap as well. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on Keontae George, Jordan Clarkson specifically.
So Keontae George starting, he's been pretty consistently around that 5x, which on this slate, it could be enough. Like we don't have super great value, and I do think he has the potential to put up a little bit more. But Jordan Clarkson, it seems like they're just very comfortable unleashing him. A big difference is Keontae George in the starting lineup over THT. This dude has a higher usage than Lauri Markkanen over the past few games, which blows my mind because Lauri Markkanen is very clearly the best player on that team. But I love Jordan Clarkson tonight. 17% ownership, 7K. I really don't even think the price is that high. I mean, he's been destroying that price tag.
Yeah, I don't. So this is one of those situations where it was sticker shock to me to only see him at 17%. I just mentioned, I think a lot of people have recency bias with the Malik Monk thing, and he's chalk. And then you got Jordan Clarkson, who has literally crushed 4 straight times. Yeah, that just seems too low, and especially with especially with this game total, like it's appealing to me. 26 shot attempts. We're not too worried about the defense. It just feels, I don't want to say safe, but it kind of feels safe. If that's the wrong word, like is he safe tonight? I don't know. I guess that's where people might be struggling to get to because he does still feel like a GPP play, but that's probably why he's coming in low owned.
Well, someone asked that question on one of the previous slates. Is Jordan Clarkson a safe play? And like I thought about it after, and it's like we don't necessarily want to play safe plays in GPPs. We want to play the guys with potential to blow up. And if Jordan Clarkson's going to put up 20 shots tonight in this high total game, then at 7K under 20% ownership, versus look at him versus Malik Monk. I mean, he's $1,300 more. I'd much rather just find a 1,300 and pay up for Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sorting it by ownership right now, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like Fox makes sense, Sharp makes sense, but like you look at the pricing and you look at the players there, like he has the chance to truly 7x there. Maybe not 7x, but like 6.5x at his price tag. Whereas the other players, you're kind of just hoping they hit value, thinking they're a good play to hit value. And he's like the one strong play I see. And then Isaiah Joe, I do feel kind of okay with him. You got the shooting guard, small forward eligibility. Again, I think I have bias there, but he is pulling in only 15% or so projected ownership, projected at 26 minutes. I don't know. I'm got a little bit of sticker shock there. I feel like he's a little bit too low owned.
Yeah, his ownership. Well, we have him projected for 26 minutes, which sounds insane. But with Jalen Williams out of the lineup, like we really don't know what OKC is going to do. But at this low ownership for Isaiah Joe, I'm gonna take shots there. I think it's great.
Yeah, and so with that, he is forward eligible. Let's go ahead and pivot into the forwards. And we did get kind of a statement about Harrison Barnes. Feels like a random 40 burger for Harrison Barnes. And honestly, like that's the thing with them. It's like there's just random people that go off. It's Fox, it's Sabonis, and then someone random going off. Whether that's Harrison Barnes, whether that's Keegan Murray, whether that's Monk, it's just kind of crazy there.
Yeah, I mean, Harrison Barnes does that randomly, but that's why I like to play a lot of lineups so I can mix Harrison Barnes into a few because when he puts up 7 fantasy points on, that lineup's dead, but I have, 100 other lineups that are competing. And then when Harrison Barnes goes off, it's great leverage.
Yeah, I'm not going to get to him as someone that only plays, a few lineups, mostly single entry type of player. So, yeah. I could definitely, I guess maybe I typically have been doing 4 lineups. I could probably get to him in 1, just hoping for that, I guess. So,
in my 3 single entries, he's not going to be anywhere near them.
Okay. Even on FanDuel where he's, kind of cheaper.
No, I'd rather play the Memphis guys, I think.
Yeah.
And then, we don't have much other value, but yeah, the Memphis guys pay a little more for Santi Aldama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. real quickly, you love Grant Williams. What are your thoughts on him tonight at 2% owned? I know you kind of mentioned him already, but projected to get 32 minutes in a pretty appealing game, right? 243 for the over and under, 2.5 is the game line. He kind of feels like the third guy in that offense to me. And we know that Luka's questionable, expected to play. We're not worried about Derek Jones. Tim Hardaway Jr. can have a random, I guess, Harrison Barnes type game, but he just had that. So, yeah, I feel like Grant Williams is a play that does make sense. What are your thoughts with him?
Yeah, I like him. And Luca was confirmed in by Underdog. And yeah, I mean, Grant Williams, it's kind of the same thing as Harrison Barnes, right? If he hits threes and gets a couple of rebounds in a stock or two, then he'll probably get there. And if he doesn't hit threes, then he's going to sink your lineup. But I mean, he's 2% owned. So I say I like him. I'm not going crazy on him.
Yeah.
But I think we want to be over this 2%.
Mm-hmm. And then I do want to touch on just the Portland players in general, specifically Shaden Sharp and also Jeremy Grant. Let's start with Jeremy Grant. So he is someone that we know is shooting the basketball a lot. He's going to play a lot if the game stays close. 7.2, probably a little bit too high, but going against OKC, I'm not exactly sure I'm worried about that matchup too much. Probably just a GPP only play. And then Sharp, he definitely feels like a GPP only play, but he is someone that, again, we can probably bank on to get 38 minutes. Kind of a twofold question, and it kind of blends into one. One, do you like them? And then two, if you are playing them, would you only want to play them together, meaning that you're betting on the game to stay close?
I don't think so. I feel like I would, if I was hand building a lineup, I don't think I would put both. Jeremy Grant is one of the most frustrating players to play because I'll tag along with the field when he's chalk and then he'll sink me and then I won't play him and then he'll go off for 50. And so I think OKC is a really good team, especially on defense. It's kind of surprising. It's only a 6.5 point spread. Portland's like the third worst team in the NBA. But I mean, if Jeremy Grant, here's the thing, we expect him to take like a lot of shots and he hasn't even really been doing that every game. And so like 17 shots, I mean, yeah, that's great. But I mean, we're playing Jeremy Grant. I want him to put up 25. Like, just keep chucking, man.
Like he did like early on, 12 for 25 against the Kings. And then since then, 17, 17, 17, and 20. Like you would expect him to at least get 20 in this current role for sure.
Yeah, like 20 shots is great, but he's really not doing that much in terms of peripherals for me to be excited about playing him when he's chalk. And so he's part of my exposures, but I tried to get away as much as I could. And then Shaden Sharp, what was Shaden Sharp's ownership?
Let me just take a peek. I mean, he's not popping up as like a strong play. So it actually is pretty high owned on FanDuel. He's 6.7 on FanDuel, 33% there, projected to get 37 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, 33% on FanDuel for Shaden Sharp, another guy I feel like is a GPP play that the field is playing as chalk. And DraftKings 15% at 73. Like, I think he's still a GPP play.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'd just rather pay more at the half ownership. But I don't love him tonight either way. I don't love either. I don't like this game in general.
All right, so then a secondary question from that. Jabari Walker, he's been someone that has been getting about 20 minutes or so over the past 4 games, is projecting in as an okay value. Again, we said we're starved for value plays. We mentioned John Concert. We don't love, but we don't hate. We're probably getting to him a little bit. Obviously, the field is. Would Walker potentially be a decent pivot off of that, or is it probably just someone there's no need to play?
I think Jabari Walker's fine. I've been getting him to a lot in my night slate lineups. He's a much stronger play there. Just there's going to be less value. And if he puts up just a 5x at 20 fantasy points, then I think we're pretty happy with that. I believe he had center eligibility unless they change that. And so on not on okay, so they did change it. He had a center eligibility on DraftKings a couple nights ago.
Okay.
And so that changes it a little bit, I guess. But I think he's fine. 14% actually does sound kind of high, but I don't mind it. I mean, we're starved for value, and he's one of the later games. If something opens up, we can swap off of him, and if we're stuck with him, I think that's fine too.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. Are there any other kind of forwards that you want to mention here at all, or should we move on to centers?
I think we got to everybody. I do want to talk about LeBron James real quick. He's projected for very low ownership, and he's been so good. He's been crushing. And I'm wondering if the field, like, I know his price is high, so maybe that has to do with the ownership too, but I'm wondering if the field is nervous to play him because Dylan Brooks locked him up last time. And it's like, we're talking about LeBron James and Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks is a great defensive player, but don't be scared to play LeBron because he's seeing Dylan Brooks tonight. It just sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, that is weird. You think 9.6 is too much for him on DraftKings? I know FanDuel is probably correctly priced, but 9.6, you think that's right?
I mean, it seems right?
I don't know. I don't think so. I like in that matchup. I don't know. I don't think it does.
You think it's too cheap?
A little bit too cheap, yeah. Because I
Okay.
mean, look at his upside, like 60, 71, 50, like 60 again. I'm perfectly happy to pay someone at 9.6 if they have a 70, 60 point upside. Like to me, he should be a 10K player at least.
Oh, I love it. You're talking me into getting more LeBron James.
I mean, again, like while you're the one that said that Dylan Brooks doesn't matter, we're not worried about that. So I blame you if he doesn't get there. But no, I like it. I think that's too cheap. I do. I think both him and AD should at least be 10K. I'm basically every slate.
I am at 22% of LeBron in my DraftKings build, so tells you I'm playing a bunch of LeBron tonight.
I think that's correct. And I do just want to, while we're at the forwards, I do just want to take a quick peek at Houston because I believe there was someone questionable.
Tari Eason?
Yeah, is he active? He is.
Okay.
Well, we got him projected to be active right now. I was going to say Jabari Smith, Justine Tate could be someone we're jumping on to value-wise. Let me just double-check that real quick. Yeah, he's projected to play now. Okay, so never mind.
Yeah, I was going to be very interested in Tate too at that 1% ownership, 3,800.
They're both, I mean, all three of those players are still fine. They're kind of point per minute players, but they're all kind of correctly priced when they're all active, right? Like him, Tate, Easton Smith, right?
So Jabari Smith, for his performance lately, yeah, his price is appropriate, but I expected so much more out of this guy coming into the season and what he did in preseason. He's had a couple really good games. At 7% on DraftKings, 5,500, I don't mind taking shots there. And then as for Tari Eason, 4,200 at 17%, like this guy is not going to play more than 20 minutes almost ever. Very, very productive in his 20 minutes. I think he played really well against the Lakers in like 12 minutes last time out, put up like 25 fantasy points. 70% is not too chalky, but I don't love getting there when the rest of the field is going to get there as much, but it's still okay.
Yeah. And then Tate had 5 fouls in 9 minutes of play last game. So he didn't play at all. And the other games he had been playing about 20 minutes or so. So, he's someone that's probably going to give 5X as well. So I think they're all okay, honestly.
I do just want to mention Dylan Brooks getting forgotten again. Going against the Lakers, they want him to guard LeBron. He's going to play 30 plus minutes, and he started out the season so strong. I had such high hopes for him, but he's been awful lately. And so he's a deep GPP play at 4%.
Yeah, I'm not getting there. Obviously, it makes more sense for you to maybe try to get to him, a little bit heavy minutes and one. I guess I could see like someone that Matt Center's getting there. I actually don't mind that in that scenario, but I'm not getting to him. I think that's too thin.
I think that's fine.
So we'll talk about Sengun as a center here as we pivot into the center plays. Let's see if we have any questions at all. Is Durante a lock if he starts? Let's just kind of talk about this kind of general question. What are your thoughts on players that are good values that are projected to start? Is that one of those situations where if he's chalk, you just eat the chalk? Or is it just really what the data is telling us? Or kind of what are your general thoughts there?
For the most part, I think you just have to consider who he's playing next to. Like when Tyus Jones was projected to start last year, we know his usage was going to be high because we've seen it enough times and he handles the ball. But if Chris Duarte is starting, like he's super cheap, but he's playing next to De'Aaron Fox and DeMantis, who have 2 of the highest usages in the whole league. How many minutes do we have him projected for? Because I don't even think he's played. Maybe he's played 2 games where he's gotten the minutes we're projecting him for tonight.
Yeah, let me
only 16. That's crazy. Okay, I could actually see him playing a couple more than 16 minutes, but the model doesn't love him. Even if we give him 20 minutes, add 20% to the value and OF values. I mean, he's like the guy that's dead last in the model. And so if he becomes chalk, it's another situation. I'd rather just get to more De'Aaron Fox, Keegan Murray, DeMantis, even Malik Monk over Chris Duarte. I know that he allows us to do stuff with our lineups, but like if you guys played Dean Wade the other night, I mean, were you happy looking at your 4.75 DK points? I wasn't.
I will say though, like if the data changes, like the minutes and whatnot, and like the OF index likes a little bit more, I'm fine getting to him, I think, but I don't think he's exactly Dean Wade, I'll say. But you're not Dean Wade. You're saying you played him. People were playing him just because he was starting, right?
just because he was starting, projected for minutes. I mean, he was the top of the model value.
Mhm.
The model is adjusting now. He's not top of the. He wasn't anywhere near the top of FanDuel value today for that first game.
Mhm.
But like the thing is, Chris Duarte can handle the ball, but he's still playing next to De'Aaron Fox. So
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. So we go ahead and pivot on into centers. We got DeAndre Ayton pulling in as a chalky option and one of the best values on the slate at the center position, 6.6, 32% projected ownership. And then we got two players right beneath him at similar price tags. John Collins, power forward center eligible, 18% owned on DraftKings projected ownership, and then FanDuel is going to be 23, and then Yusuf Nurk 6.5, 6.4 relatively on DraftKings and FanDuel. What are your thoughts about those three players? Because they're all similarly priced, all kind of point per minute players. Is there one that you favor? Is the ownership correct? Kind of what are your general thoughts there?
well, Aiton's been very frustrating because he's either doing stuff or he's doing nothing, mostly doing nothing.
Yeah.
But with Robert Williams out for the season, it's just his minutes are a little bit more secure. They probably need him on the court to guard Chet Holmgren. It's crazy. Did this just change to a 1 point spread? Like Portland is favored by 1 point. Did we just
Let's
miss
see.
SGA out or something?
Let's see. I'm going to try to refresh real quick.
Am I reading this right?
Chat, anyone got that as well? Let's just see. Let me scroll over. Line movement is 1, I think is what you're seeing. Still 6.5 is what I'm seeing.
Oh, all right, good. Okay, sorry. Yeah, that's a huge difference. But
Yeah, no.
I don't mind DeAndre Ayton. I think he was actually my highest exposed just due to the price at 6,600. He has that ceiling. The floor is pretty good. And then all the other centers that I'm really interested in today are a little bit more expensive.
Okay, so you don't feel the need to potentially pivot off of Aiden to go to someone like John Collins, who probably a little bit too cheap, had a good game in his last game. It's a high total game. People are trying to get there. Probably just playing him in the power forward spot if you're playing him.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about John Collins on stream a bit, talking
Oh, yeah.
about how he's been such a good play at his price, and he finally flashed a little bit of that ceiling, but his floor has been very consistent around 5x at this price.
Yeah.
So even at this ownership, I don't mind playing him. I do prefer to get him in power forward spot if you can help it. If you're using the builder, the way you can do that is play at least one from this group and just put all the centers you want to play in there. That way you're guaranteed to have a true center.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned the lineup builder. Would you put a rule in to not have him in marketing on the on a build together? Because I feel like that is something I've noticed that marketing does his ceiling's capped when John Collins has a pretty solid game. I don't know. I'm kind of just worried about that, I guess.
I think it's a little too restricting, but I don't hate it. If there was a way to, I don't know, just go through and make sure you're not getting them in a few lineups together, because I don't mind having them in a couple lineups together.
Yeah.
I don't want them like in all my lineups together. But if, yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Okay. And then let's just see here. The other center plays, like the best center plays you mentioned, you're probably trying to pay up. Is it Anthony Davis? Is it Sabonis, Porzingis, Sengun, or just kind of a match of all of them?
I might be overlooking Porzingis, but I didn't realize this. Okay, so it's a 10.5 point spread. I was looking at the line movement again. I don't know. Porzingis can get there in low minutes, and he said he's really comfortable in the role he has, where he doesn't have to necessarily be the man. But I'd rather just find the salary and get up to AD. Even DeMontis has been very dominant recently. Chet Holmgren, and then I mentioned Sengun, who I like a lot, and these are all the top center plays on the model. So
Yeah. No love for Derek Lively on this slate, right? Like probably too thin. I'm assuming he was a good play a couple slates ago in a good matchup, but I don't know. I don't think we can project him to get 30 minutes in this game.
at 1% ownership, I'll take some shots. Not going crazy on him. Like if I'm only making a few lineups, I'd probably never get there. But 5,600, I don't hate it. We can play two centers on DraftKings. Someone has to guard DeMontis, or otherwise they're going to have Derek Jones Jr. or Grant Williams on him. And it just, I don't know. It's a high total game, and so it makes me really like. You're talking me into Derek Lively.
Okay, I believe he was in that lineup I had. I'm not. I think that was the same day, but he had 24 minutes in that game. Smashed there. It was a great matchup against Washington. Besides that, he hasn't been able to do much. So I think it might just be a matchup thing for him. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a little too thin. Like I don't know. Let's look at other players at that same price tag, center wise. Like you'd rather get to Bismack. You'd probably rather get to Kelly Olynyk, or you'd rather probably play down for Drew Eubanks there.
I think Kelly Olynyk's a pretty good pivot off John Collins.
Yeah, I don't mind that actually. Just, I mean, have your proper exposure to him or pivot. Yeah, I don't mind that. It's a high total game, right? We want to target the high total game. He's going to get 25 or so minutes. If he gets hot shooting the basketball, he can get there. I don't mind that. And that's meant him his whole career, it seems like, or the past 5 years. Yeah, Chet Holmgren, I kind of just want to mention him as well. 19% projected ownership on DraftKings, on FanDuel, pulling in as pretty much chalk, 39% projected owned. I don't know. I think he's someone that we could see step up into a safe role tonight. I don't want to say like a higher usage rate role, but I think his production should be pretty safe. Going against Portland, like we're not too worried about Aiden defense. I don't know. I kind of feel like he could smash in this spot.
Yeah, he definitely could. Portland is awful. We want to target players against Portland, and like coming into the year, getting back to Josh Giddey, I thought Josh Giddey was the clear second best player on this team, and now he might not even be the third best, like behind Chet and maybe Jalen Williams. But it seems like Chet is very clearly SGA sidekick for now. And his price on both sites, like the 39% on FanDuel might seem insane, but the 7,500 price is pretty good given we get the extra bonus. He hasn't really been getting the blocks and steals like I was wanting. Last night, I think he just put up like 35 real life points is how he got there.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's got to be feeling good. Did you see that shot that he hit to send it to overtime?
Yeah, that was awesome.
That's one of the, like, imagine being a rookie and making that shot to beat Steph Curry. It's got to feel so good.
I mean, honestly, maybe that's a reason not to play him, though. Coming in off of a high, typical letdown spot.
Yeah, he played big minutes, and I'm wondering if this 39% would be as high as it was if he didn't absolutely go off last night. And so
you're right. Honestly, my initial thoughts on today were I don't want to be on Chet Holmgren too much just because of that overtime game. Probably. I don't think they're worried about his minutes, but like coming in off of a high, I was not planning to be on him. But now, specifically for DraftKings, 19% did seem a little bit too low.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Because I was going to say Sengun is right there at basically the same price, but their ownership isn't that much of a difference to be like, okay, I'm going to pivot to Sengun. They're both basically the same to me.
All right, so let's get into Sengun before we get into a couple more questions here. So you've been mentioning him a few times. Is it just because he's a save play going against the Lakers? I mean, against the Lakers last time out, it was a blowout. 25 minutes, had 33 fantasy points or DraftKings points in that game. Or is that just like, yeah, give him 10 more minutes, he's going to get us at like 50 or 45 DraftKings points?
Yeah, I mentioned it before that like AD is one of the best defensive players in the NBA, but he doesn't necessarily stop opposing centers from scoring fantasy points, especially Sengun. I feel like he's kind of a young Jokic. He's been involved in the playmaking. He's a good rebounder. He's an okay rebounder, but he's shooting threes. I think he's such a good play. He has a very seemingly safe floor with the potential to give us maybe 50 fantasy points.
Yeah.
And if he's going a little bit overlooked today, I want to be over the field on him.
Okay, that makes sense. He's coming in at 13.7% projected ownership, so yeah, you could definitely pivot to him off of a somewhat chalky Chet Holmgren. So yeah, that makes sense. Then we did have a question about Jalen Green. Thoughts on him as a play on FanDuel tonight?
I think Jalen Green is just forever GPP play. All he does is score points, and if he's not scoring points, he's not getting there. He's playing next to Fred VanVleet, who takes up a lot of usage. He's playing next to Sengun, who takes up a bunch of usage. And I think we've been in this spot before where Jalen Green was kind of chalky, and the 6,400 price is probably appropriate for him, right? And 20% isn't that much ownership, but I'd rather play him when he's like 2% owned, when maybe it's a bigger slate, no one's getting there, and it's a decent matchup for him. But Jalen Green, I have a tough time getting to him all the time.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you there. Yeah, it's just until like Fred VanVleet's out pretty much, then we can maybe think about playing him when he doesn't get a price bump. So let's kind of go through the typical thing that we do about this point of the video, kind of a lineup process portion of it. Real quick question for you before I get into the Discord chat. Just call out. What time are we starting tonight on there? Is it the normal time, or is it because lineup lock's a little bit later? Is it a little bit later?
Yeah, we usually do Discord chat 30 minutes before the slate locks on DraftKings. So it looks like Jayhawk is handling that at.
Okay. Yep. So guys, make sure to jump into the Occupy Fantasy Discord, in about 30 minutes from now. So we'll be covering you guys, giving you guys the live coverage up until lineup lock there. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into kind of our final thoughts for this slate. First and foremost, can you hear me on this slide?
I can.
Perfect. So to me, I think I want to start with Jordan Clarkson. The question is, do we want to play him in the guard or shooting guard or point guard spot?
I typically want to go with when the guys have both guard eligibilities, usually in the shooting guard spot, just so we can get a true point guard in the point guard spot. It's different on certain slates, but today I do think we want to put
Mhm.
him at the shooting guard spot. Not that there's a point guard I'm dying to play besides De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah. I was going to say, is there like a value that we could be on instead, like guard wise? Eric Gordon's a shooting guard, point guard eligible. John Concher, point guard, small forward eligible. Like, are we looking at one of those two plays, or are we just trying to pay up for maybe Luca? Kyrie's in a decent spot we didn't even mention. SGA, like, are we trying to pay up for one of those guys?
I think I prefer to pay up for one of those guys. Yeah, unless we're full punting and playing Chris Duarte in the shooting guard spot.
Mhm.
I think I do prefer to just pay up for point guard today.
Okay, so let's try to get in Luca. He's lower owned. That could be just a nice spot. 60 in his last game. But this is going back to my LeBron point. Like Luca, we're paying up for just because he gives us a 60. But like LeBron has been doing that consistently over the last, throughout the last 5 games. So
Yeah, Luka at this ownership in this high total game, I love it under 10%, even though he's expensive. If you can find a way to get there, it seems awesome.
okay, we'll try it for now. If we're doing that, we probably have to pass up on any mid-tier plays at the forward spot. So no Markkanen, no LeBron James, no Dort for that matter. I don't know if anyone's getting there. I kind of like him, but so we're probably looking at Isaiah Joe, maybe John Concher. I guess which one do you like best there?
My first choice is Zaire Williams,
Okay,
probably
we'll go
followed
with
by
him.
John Conchar.
Okay, we'll try that. Then I think we can play both of them.
Yeah, I think that's fine too.
And then honestly, because we have Luca, I'm just going to go Joe as well. I think to me,
Okay.
that's probably my 3 favorite values, honestly. Just hoping that Joe doesn't have a cold night shooting. And so that leaves us with power forward, center, and utility, about 6.3 left over. So we could play Aiden, we could play John Collins. But who do you like the best? Sangoon, we could get to if you want to.
I think if we're playing Luca, it makes sense to run it back with a king. And so Keegan Murray is the cheaper one. If you're playing the Chalk Malik Monk, that's fine too, as long as you're different in another spot in your lineup. I think I'm going to try to match up Luca with a lot of De'Aaron Fox tonight, though, which might be kind of probably can't do it in this build.
No, you'd have to get up from Jordan Clarkson to go to De'Aaron Fox, which could work. Could
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. And then, it looks like Aiden fits pretty easily at the center spot now.
Yeah, I mean, just trying to eat the chalk with Monk. I don't mind this. Like, it's enough unique value with Zaire and Joe. Keegan Murray's obviously our low on play that needs to go off. Luca's kind of the low on play that needs to go off. Not terrible. Probably should eat a little bit more chalk, but not a bad starting point, I would say.
Yeah. With Luca's low ownership, if he puts up a monster score that you need for a winning lineup tonight and he's under 10% owned, Zaire Williams is going to be very low owned. Keegan Murray's under 20%. Isaiah Joe is going to be around 20%. I think that's enough already. As long as you're not playing Luca with like the super chalk, all the chalk values, Chris Duarte is probably going to be a common combo. If you're getting to Luca, then I think it's already enough, different enough.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's see if we have any more questions coming up here. Okay, yeah, Jayok was just confirming. Good. Should usage be a priority with centers, especially with plays like Bismack Biyombo? I would say minutes mostly for centers. What about you?
Considering usage with like Alper and Sengun, it's probably really important. But with Bismack, it's not, because he's going to get his points from easy dump downs, like offensive rebounds and putbacks and blocks and steals. And so a player like Bismack, I don't really pay attention to that.
Yeah, he's always just been someone lately that's been like, if I end up on him, I'm okay with it. He's going to get probably 30 minutes, 30 fantasy points. But I just refreshed the data, just kind of recapping the chalk here. Monk, Aiden, Concher, Grant. That's interesting. Kenrick Williams, we totally forgot about him. Let's just hit on that again. So he is coming in as chalk. To me, I like Joe as a better play. Is this a situation where we probably should just eat the chalk, or maybe just wait until we get a confirmed starting lineup?
Let's see the starting lineup, because if Kenrich Williams isn't starting, he does have some upside off the bench. But even if he's starting, I don't see him getting many more minutes than he's been getting. And if he's going to end up that chalky, this is like, I don't want to say he's bad chalk, but these are the spots of chalk that I just try to avoid.
Yeah, and I just want to read off the pricing again because he's chalk, and I feel like we have some okay plays around his price tag. We already got exposure to some of them. Zaire's a little bit higher, but I think he's fine. Joe, I like, but we got the Houston guys that are right there. Jocelyn Tate could get some more minutes. Okachai is okay, like pulling in 11% projected ownership. Like there's other plays you can make work. I was about to say Jonathan Isaac. I wonder what he's doing. Did he play well?
Jonathan Isaac.
I know he's not in this slate.
Probably not. Why, you're a big fan of Jonathan Isaac?
I played him on the last slate just as a pump play, and it worked out. And so I'm kind of keeping an eye on that. Like if he gets us more minutes on a different slate, like 25 projected minutes, I'm going crazy on that. Like he's going to be my new Jaquez, if you will.
Okay. I was going to say, I just had my eyes real wide because I saw that Orlando is up by 30 against Indiana. That is not what I expected at all. Indiana has the best offense in the NBA this season, and Orlando gave him 80 points in the first half. It's interesting.
So my boy Jonathan Isaac is going off then, I bet.
He's got 3 points and a rebound in 6 minutes.
All right, never mind the terrible call.
He's in line for some blowout run, though.
Yes. So I don't know. I just don't know if we need to eat that chalk going back to it because you have other, I don't want to say safe plays, but similar plays, honestly. They're just probably getting a little bit overlooked.
Yeah, it just I don't think you have to do that much to get different tonight. Play a couple of the guys in the 20% range, and avoiding a 50% owned guy is leverage over half the field. I mean, Chris Duarte, 3,200. It's like every stat he picks up is pretty huge for him getting to value. But it just, even if he puts up like 12, do you love it? Like, what do we, what are we really expecting?
We're expecting Champagne night again. We did have a question about Kamara. He's projected to get 30 minutes. He's kind of right at that price tag as well. 4.1 on DraftKings, 4.4, pulling in about 10% on DraftKings. Any love for him tonight? For Portland?
I don't hate it if that's the piece that you have to slide in to fit in like Luka and De'Aaron Fox or AD, LeBron, whatever it might be. He played 36 minutes in the last game, but he's mostly been in the mid-20s. And so mid-20s, I probably hate it, but with the potential to play 30 plus, I mean, I don't hate it. Like we were talking about Jabari Walker earlier, and I see him as basically the same.
Yeah, I agree. Any closing thoughts for the slate before we get out of here? More closing thoughts? I guess.
Just that Jaylen Brown, we just got another update that he's still questionable. And last time Jaylen Brown was out, we saw Derek White and Drew Holiday's usage shoot up. I think we were pretty heavy on Jason Tatum that day. And so Jason Tatum's still going to be a spot if he's going to come in with the ownership that we had him projected at. He's at 5% on both sites right now at 10K. Like, this is absurd. This never would have happened last year, especially with Jaylen Brown out. But Drew Holiday and Derek White both look like great spots. I prefer Drew Holiday.
And then let's just prepare for it. If you were to sit, would you be looking at any Al Horford or no?
I hate Al Horford, so I'm not the right person to ask.
A big pass. I would say he's too priced up on this slate to get there. It'd probably be Pritchard is who I'd want to get to if we got news that Brown was out as current price tag of 3.7.
I will say at 1% though for a 5K Al Horford, like we've seen him do some stuff, right? I don't hate it as a GPP play. It's a 10.5 point spread. Probably, I don't know how much Jaylen Brown moves the line, like maybe a point, if that. Might not matter.
And then kind of my last question, just in general here, Memphis is obviously going to be a source for some value. I think, I don't want to say you're probably setting a rule, but is there too many Memphis players you can get to? Like, are you probably setting a max of 2 on the slate? I guess, what are your closing thoughts on Memphis just in general? Because to me, it should be a good value spot, but to me, there's not too much clarity. And I do like Jaren Jackson. I do like Desmond Bane, but the other pieces don't feel as great as I would love them to feel.
I think 2 is a little bit too restrictive. I'm debating between 3 or 4, and I don't necessarily love playing Bane and Jaren Jackson together, but if they keep this game close, then it makes sense that they both have good games. But I think that combos would be more like Santi Aldama, John Concha, Desmond Bane, Zaire Williams, Santi Aldama, John Concha even. Not even getting to Bane or JJJ, but I think 3 is fine. And maybe 4 because Bismack is in there too. I mean, they have like 8 guys available tonight, so they got to play minutes.
And they'd almost become more appealing if we got news that Jaylen Brown were to sit. Just one playmaker taken away from Boston, so likelihood for the game to stay a little bit closer for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I'm wondering who like someone's gonna get the garbage time, even if it's a blowout. Like I feel like Zaire Williams and maybe John Conchar just have to play. Like they could throw out Gilliard, Roddy, and Lofton, but two other
Oh,
guys still have to be
maybe
on the court.
Lofton. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm talking myself into a dumb Lofton lineup. I did.
All
Don't
right,
do
well,
it,
it
guys.
could be tournament winning.
Honestly, like Bismack gets into foul trouble. I don't think that's too out of the equation against Boston, but probably just Jaren Jackson would shift there. But he could get into foul trouble too, so
Yeah.
not too great.
I will say he's been pretty good about keeping his hands to himself. Because this dude got in foul trouble every single game last season, and he's been good this year. At 2%, I'll take a shot.
Yeah. So John wants us to quickly do some ownership. I'll just flash this real quick. This will be updating up until lineup lock. So like it's already shifted a bunch. Aiden, Monk, chalk, Grant, chalk, Kendrick Williams, chalk. So, but yeah, that's it. So,
And I might be bad, but I want to avoid most of the chalk besides Aiden and Conchar.
really, yeah. I guess we mentioned Monk. Probably feels a little bit too thin. A little bit of recency bias. Grant, I was pretty shocked by. So yeah, I'm probably agreeing with you. But after those guys, after the top tier, it does kind of just spread out pretty evenly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be it, guys. Appreciate you guys being here. Be here tomorrow for the next live stream. And also make sure to be in the Discord chat here coming up shortly.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks.